Hello there, Core is back with a new review, and God is it a doozy. We are reviewing and comparing Resident Evil 2 and its new remake that just dropped. First up is a shout out to our ever lovely Kato and her great work on this thumbnail. Now let's dive right into those games, shall we? Resident Evil 2 is the beloved child of the series, universally beloved by both older and newer fans alike for its all-around excellence. And I personally have put hundreds of hours into this game, both live and on my own time. Released in 1998, Resident Evil 2 was in development for almost as soon as they had shipped the first game out the door. And given the warm reception of the original, Capcom knew a sequel would be highly anticipated. The game we got was almost an entirely different game though, taking place in the same general settings, but with dramatically different layouts, architecture, story, soundtrack, and characters. The released builds of this version have been dubbed as 1.5 by the fans and were scrapped at roughly 80%. And they started over almost entirely from scratch, completely redoing almost everything about the game, resulting in the current version of Resident Evil 2 we have today. Now fast forward 17 years to 2015, and we got the official announcement from Capcom that Resident Evil 2 is being remade due to large-scale fan requests, and in 2018 we finally got several trailers of both teaser footage and gameplay. Resident Evil 2 is a survival horror game, and along with its predecessor Resident Evil 1, it set the archetype for the genre to come. Taking place in the doomed Raccoon City, you take the role of Leon S. Kennedy, a rookie cop who is on his first day of the job, and Claire Redfield, a college motorcycle enthusiast, and sister of Chris Redfield. Together, they are fated to meet up and join forces to escape the damned city of the dead. Will you make it out alive, or will you just be another shambler in the horde? That's entirely up to you, my friends. Alright, so from here on out, we will discuss the original version of the game first, then the remake, and after that, how I feel the remake compares to the original in each category. Now that's out of the way, let's start on the gameplay. Resident Evil 2 is a survival horror game which places a heavy focus on finding and rationing resources in a smart way to make it through the hordes of undead, mutants, and abortions of science. The original uses a classic fixed camera angle and tank controls, while the remake opts to use the more commonplace third-person over-the-shoulder perspective. Both games, as survival horror games, excel at instilling tension through both limited resources and smart enemy placement. The remake also uses a chase mechanic akin to Nemesis, where at any time the tyrant could show himself and complicate the situation drastically within the RPD and certain story elements. Now the remake certainly did a fine job of taking the original elements while also incorporating new mechanics such as sub-weapons like Remake did. And while it's certainly more polished and refined, the new gameplay also does take away some of the original's tension. Used to be you'd be forced to decide on fighting the entire horde, reducing their numbers, or risk ducking and dodging through them. Now it's fairly easy to render a zombie more of an annoyance than a threat by simply going pew pew and popping off their fucking leg and bolting past the now crawling cadavers. Another aspect of the original I prefer more is the use of save point positions with limited resources, a feature only accessible on the remake if you play it on hardcore. I personally would have preferred the option to enable save points via resources manually rather than difficulty based. For a bit of context, I went into the game blind, drunk, and hardcore difficulty on the day of release. And while both games are certainly great at instilling tension, the original is still my preference gameplay wise, and it's gonna be the game I'll still be running decades down the line as long as my copy still is working. Now let's move on. So the original uses tank controls to control your character, and has a variety of button layout choices for those who prefer a different setup, or say you like auto aim, or if you own the N64 cartridge like I do, you can also use full 360 movement like in the RE1 Remake Remastered Edition. God, ain't that a fucking mouthful. Now the Remake uses a typical third-person shooter style setup, and it's fairly easy to jump into and use if you played one before. Both control setups worked just fine for the games they are made for, and while I still prefer the originals for sheer familiarity, it's hard to argue that the Remake's controls aren't fairly polished and quite user-friendly for someone just wanting to pick up and play and hasn't played either game before. So, the enemies within both games are fucking excellent. Within the original, while the 3D models aren't quite as pretty as today's standards, they make excellent use of model animations and sound effects to give a convincing performance and to unnerve anyone. And the monsters do look pretty terrifying though. The skin flesh of a licker, the unnatural movement and slithering of the ivies combined with a giant acid-spewing head, the hulking, ever-mutating form of William, and the menacing Mr. X as he stalks you throughout the building, makes the enemies quite a treat. Remake takes all of the original enemies from the game and ups the gore and violence. Zombies are very destructible and are rotting and decaying all over, with wounds upon them from either their original deaths or their encounters with later survivors. If a zombie manages to pin you down and kill you, they will literally rip a huge chunk of flesh out of your neck. And William Birkin's hideous mutations are made more and more terrifying with each skin he casts off, melting away more and more of his humanity. It's a close call for enemies with both, especially considering how well done the originals are with the limited resources they had on hand. But the remake certainly did an excellent job revitalizing and reinvigorating the staples. Either way, both will certainly inspire a quite healthy fear in you and make you want to keep a nice distance from them. This is a divisive subject right here. The original is well regarded for its atmosphere, the way it brilliantly uses ambient noises, monster sound effects, and well-written musical pieces, combined with utilizing the camera angles for smart enemy placement, excellent pre-rendered backgrounds, various props within the environment to build the tension and scares. They all serve to form one of the most immersive horror game experiences of the time and in my eyes, of all time. And here will be a short clip showing one of the best tension build-ups in my personal opinion. Understandably, the remake has a lot to live up to in this regard. Now to start off, there is one glaring weakness. The soundtrack is noticeably a lot weaker. I will discuss this more in the next segment, but keep that in mind. But in regards to sound effects, the remake did an excellent job. The ambient noises combined with the enemies located in areas certainly go a long way towards establishing tension. Once you hit a certain point in the game, you will start to be stalked by Mr. X, who will play a never-ending game of cat and mouse with only certain rooms he will never enter. You can stagger him, but you won't kill him. He won't drop and go down for the count. He will keep coming until you lose him or he kills you. Even after being lost, he will start to seek you out. If you draw a lot of attention, he will find you and make the situation a lot worse. Now, I believe the original to be an overall stronger presentation of atmosphere. The remake takes what elements it does right and really does them well. Overall, it's a toss-up for your personal preference. This is understandably the original's strongest performance. Everything in the game sounds right, from the pop of a handgun, the bang of a magnum or shotgun, the sound of an enemy sinking its teeth or claws in you, or a zombie's head being exploded with a high caliber weapon. The effects are excellent. And the soundtrack? Let me fucking tell you about the damn soundtrack. If you haven't played RE2, it is some of the most atmospheric music that really sets the tone for the scene. The main hall is ominous and foreboding. The save room is comforting and relaxing. The boss themes are thrilling and terror-inspiring. The soundtrack in the original is hands down some of the best in a horror game I've ever had the pleasure to listen to. And this is the weakest aspect of the remake. Almost none of the new tracks are ear-catching outside of, say, Mr. X's theme.
X gon' give it to ya. Fuck, wait for you to get it on your own. X gon' deliver to you.
Or boss tracks. The rest are subtle at best or non-existent at worst. The game does earn itself some brownie points with how well made the actual sound effects are. From the moans, screams, and shuffles of the zombies, to the gunfire, the gore, and the death effects. They all sound quite well done and convincing, but I have to overall give the preference to the original in this category. That soundtrack is just such a challenge for the remake to overcome. RE2 was a huge graphical and performance upgrade over the original, making the character models all look better while increasing the amount of enemies on the screen from 3 to 7, meaning you could pack an environment with more assholes trying to kill you. And for 1998, RE2 was stunning, the pre-rendered backgrounds being beautiful displays of the city in chaos, layered with effects and particles from the raging fire to rushing water. It looked beautiful back in the day and it still looks pretty nice. Though cutscene upscaling is shoddy at best due to the natively low resolution, unless you happen to own one of the higher end upscaling devices. This is also hands down the remake's strongest suit over the original. As nice as it looked, it's just hard to deny that everything just looks so pretty and colorful in the remake. It's also hard to believe that this is the same engine as 7, considering the mess of just similar colors and focus on gross out gore. The remake takes everything visually speaking from the original and makes it look just about as good, if not better. This segment goes to the remake because while RE2 looks great, Remake just looks better. Now let's talk downsides. Both are survival horror games. If you dislike horror or dislike the stressful nature of resource management coupled with horrendous monsters trying to end your life, then neither of these games are really for you. Now let's talk about the original for a bit. The tank controls coupled with the aged graphics could certainly be turn-offs, especially for those new to the genre. The original can also be somewhat cheesy at times, though much less so than the original. Sometimes coming off as a bit strange, but given the stressful environments, you'd probably be talking a little funny yourself. Now, the remake comes with its own downsides as well. It's a third-person shooter. If you dislike shooters, then you're not gonna find it any better here. While the dialogue is certainly a bit smoother in this game, the lackluster soundtrack is the remake's biggest weakness as its own game. Personally, after my first run of the game, I flipped the original soundtrack setting on and played with only that for every subsequent run. It makes that experience that much better.
Hey, it's up to us to take out Umbrella.
And holy shit, that was a doozy, wasn't it? I warned ya, I fucking did. So overall, this has been a strange video for me. Now, how do I feel about both games? Honestly, they are both excellent experiences. While I certainly still will always prefer the original, the remake was one of the best classic experiences, barring the soundtrack, that's combined with the newest style of the series that you're going to get. While yes, I would have loved for the remake to be more like the original remake of 1, it was not to be. That would have made a perfect remake in my eyes. Keep the entire original experience alive while enhancing and reanimating it with new interesting mechanics like sub-weapons. So yeah, as far as what it could have been, it's certainly the best blend of the two we're going to get. And I think we can all agree that thank fucking God it wasn't another RE6 or Operation Raccoon City. Now I would like to thank you for sitting through this review and give one more shout out to Kato Phoenix. Be sure to check out her work down below. Now before I go, I'd like to ask you to please like the video if you like the content, please subscribe for more reviews, comparisons and opinions down the line, and share the video with your friends if you want to further support the content. There's also some live streaming and social media links if you'd like to catch me as I play some of these games live. I stream every day at 6 p.m. EST. So once again, thank you for watching the video. Have a good one. I'll see you next time. Core out.